All right, welcome back. Today we are going to tackle something that, let's be honest, can look a little scary at first, the dihybrid cross. But stick with me because I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to see it's actually a super elegant, surprisingly simple tool.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. Look at this. On the left, you've got the classic four-square Punnett square. We've all seen that, right? That's for tracking just one trait. But then, look to the right. That's its bigger, much more intimidating cousin, the 16-square beast for a dihybrid cross. I know, it looks like a lot, but we are going to break this thing down piece by piece.
So what's the big deal here? Well, that simple little grid tracks just one thing, a monohybrid cross, right? Just one trait. The dihybrid cross, though, lets us follow two traits at the same time. And for our example today, just to make it fun, we're going to track two things about a cat, its hair and its weird, peculiar love for sitting in sinks. Why not, right?
Okay, the official definition is actually super important here. A dihybrid cross is a cross between two organisms that are heterozygous for two separate genes. Whoa, okay, let's unpack that. Remember, a gene is just the instruction for a trait, like hair. An allele is the version of that instruction, so you could have the allele for having hair or the allele for being hairless. And heterozygous, that just means you've got two different alleles for a gene. So for our cats, it means they have one dominant and one recessive allele for both traits we're watching.
All right, so before we dive in and start drawing that big grid, there's one fundamental rule we've got to get our heads around. This rule is like the engine that drives the whole process. Without it, none of this makes sense. And here it is. It's called the law of independent assortment. Sounds fancy, but the idea is actually super simple. It just means that the alleles for one gene sort themselves out into the reproductive cells, the gametes, totally independently of the alleles for another gene. So, for our cats, getting the hair allele doesn't influence whether it gets the love sinks allele. They're not a package deal. They sort themselves out randomly.
Okay, this brings us to the exact spot where most people get tangled up. So listen close. If you have a parent cat and its genotype, that's its genetic code, right, is big H, big S, little s, what are all the possible combinations of alleles it can actually pass on? This is the key question.
Well, luckily, there's an awesome little shortcut we can steal from algebra class. Remember the FOIL method? First, outside, inside, last. You just do that with the parent's genotype. So first gives you big H, big S. Outside is big H, little s. Inside is little h, big S, and last is little h, little s. Boom! Just like that, you've got the four possible combinations for the gametes. Easy, right?
Okay, we have our gametes. Now it's time to actually build that 16-square grid. And don't worry, I'm going to show you a trick that makes this whole thing way faster and pretty much impossible to mess up. So here's our empty grid. All we do is take those four gamete types we just figured out with FOIL, put them along the top for one parent, and then put the same four down the side for the other parent. And just like that, the stage is set.
Okay, now for that trick I was talking about. This is key. Instead of trying to fill in all four letters in each box at once, which is where mistakes happen, we're going to go into what I call robotic mode. We're going to focus on one trait at a time. So first, let's only do the H's. You take the H from the top of the column, drag it all the way down. Then you take the H from the side of the row and drag it all the way across. Just don't even think about the S's yet. Forget they exist.
All right, now that all the H's are filled in, we just do the exact same thing for the S's. See? By breaking this big, complex task into simple, repetitive little steps, it becomes so much faster and way more accurate. And just like that, our grid is totally filled out.
So we did it. We filled in all 16 boxes. And right now, it probably just looks like a random mess of letters. But trust me, hidden inside this grid is an absolutely beautiful, predictable pattern. And it shows up every single time you do this type of cross. This, right here, is the big payoff.
Okay, let's start with the biggest group. If you scan through that grid, you're going to find 9, count them, 9 boxes that have at least one big H and at least one big S. What does that mean? It means these are the offspring that show both dominant traits, or phenotypes. So in our case, they have hair and they love sinks.
All right, next up, let's find our first group of 3. If you look, you'll find 3 boxes where the individuals are dominant for that first trait but recessive for the second. So what does that look like? These cats have hair, but they could not care less about sinks.
And then, you guessed it, we're going to find another group of 3. And this is just the reverse combo of what we just saw. They're recessive for the first trait, but dominant for the second.
So these are our very special, hairless cats that still, for some reason, love to hang out in the sink.
And last but not least, we've got the rarest one of all. There's just one single box left. This one is homozygous recessive for both traits. That's a fancy way of saying it has 2 little h's and 2 little s's. This is the cat that's hairless and has 0 interest in sinks whatsoever.
And when you see it all color-coded like this, the pattern just jumps out at you, doesn't it? That classic 9 to 3 to 3 to 1 ratio. It's not magic, it's not random. It is the predictable result of pure probability at work.
Let's think about it in terms of probability, because that's really what this is. Out of 16 possible outcomes, you have a 9 in 16 chance of getting an offspring with both dominant traits. You have a 3 in 16 chance for each of those mixed combos, and of course that super rare 1 in 16 chance of getting the double recessive.
Okay, so you've put in the work. You've mastered the grid. So what if I told you that you pretty much never have to draw that thing again? Yep, it's time to level up. Let's learn the mathematical shortcut that's going to make you feel like a genetics wizard.
The logic here is actually really elegant. Remember that law of independent assortment? Because the 2 traits don't affect each other, we can figure out the odds of any combination just by looking at each trait on its own, and then multiplying their probabilities together.
Let's put it to the test. What are the odds of getting a cat that has hair but dislikes sinks? Okay, let's think. From a simple single-trait cross, we know the chance of having hair, the dominant trait, is 3 out of 4, and the chance of disliking sinks, the recessive trait, is 1 out of 4. So, what happens when you multiply 3/4 by 1/4? You get 3/16. The exact same answer we got from painstakingly counting boxes in that huge grid. How cool is that?
And this isn't a fluke. It works every single time for this kind of cross. The probability for a dominant phenotype is always 3/4. The probability for a recessive phenotype is always 1/4. You just need to know what you're looking for. Want the odds of a dominant and dominant outcome? Easy. It's just 3/4 times 3/4, which is 9/16. It's literally that simple.
So think about what we just did. In just a few minutes, we went from this big, scary-looking 16-square grid all the way down to a simple multiplication problem. And all it took was understanding the fundamental rule that was running the show the whole time. It kind of makes you wonder, right? What other really complex-looking systems out there, in science or even in life, could be totally demystified if we just took the time to find and understand their fundamental rules?